put that you're here yet by using the annotate button. Please do that, everyone. Your schools are all on the map for our whole district. So
yeah,
that's what those little schoolhouses are. Yeah.
All right, so good morning, everybody. Thanks so much for being here today. So we're going to do like we've done before, which is a little question to get you ready to roll. So we're going to ask how familiar you are with skills. That's a specific thing, the skills function in SeeSaw. So I've used this feature a bunch. What are you talking about? Kind of. This will give our co-presenter, will introduce shortly, Steve, a little idea of that. Carrie, where would you put yourself on this list?
Kind of.
Kind of. All right, let's get that out. The annotate tool, I'm going to stamp, what are you, a star or a heart? Or
sure. Star's great.
Okay. Kind of. Sanchia, what do you think?
I would say kind of too.
All right.
We definitely use this.
Oh, so it's I've used this feature a bunch. All right, I like it. So, and I think it's good that we have a wide range. When I was kind of thinking about this and getting ready for the day, it was like, I put my check mark on what are you talking about? I think when Steve and I were chatting, I hadn't made a lot of the different connections with the actual skills functionality stuff, right? But what do you?
That's exactly where I would be too.
Right.
What are you talking about?
It's good.
Familiar with SeeSaw, but not with skills.
Yeah.
Part of it.
So a nice wide range of folks here. We can see a lot of folks have kind of a working knowledge of kind ofs. I think for folks who are like, what are you talking about? You're going to really hear some really clear steps here and how you can use that. And I know that Carrie, Sanchia, and Ashley will be sharing lots of really good examples, and also by asking the questions you're wondering about. So that's what we want them to do. At any point, please type in the chat box. We'll pause, we'll read those out. We'll kind of make sure Steve's being clear on that. So we'll do that, and we're going to keep our mic just live so at the time, just to kind of have our music. So let's clear our drawings and move on to the next slide. So this is SeeSaw session number 1, really about pedagogical documentation with skills. Before we get too far, Ashley was grilling me earlier today about something. What was the topic, Ashley?
We just had a lot of ECEs that I talked to yesterday that were asking about when we switch over, like when it comes to what the admin can see on our SeeSaws and how that's going to work.
Okay, so we'll do our territorial acknowledgement and then we'll answer that question. All right, does that sound good? So we're going to talk about documentation, but as we do with all of our sessions, we want to acknowledge that the land on which we are gathered throughout Atlantic Kent is part of the traditional territory of the Chippewa, Odawa, Potawatomi, and Delaware nations. And I love the concept. They didn't write it down to say, because this is the short form version, but that mutual sharing of the land and the responsibilities of that, and extend to all peoples. So we're super excited to be together and sharing today. We have from the UK today, actually checking in, Steve Taylor. He's with SeeSaw. Carrie DeGuire is an ECE at High Park in Sarnia. Ashley McGregor is an ECE at Kinwood. Sanchia Wilson is an ECE at Winston Churchill in Chatham. Marilyn Anderson is our system coordinator, student achievement for elementary, and I'm Ben. I get to work in program. But I want to answer Ashley's question before we get too far, because I think that's really important and probably the burning question many people are wondering. So why SeeSaw? And then since it's SeeSaw, so like what's up with that? So I think the best way to begin the conversation is to say that we went to SeeSaw. Number 1, I'll just go back to this slide because that's distracting. We went to SeeSaw this way, using the paid version as a system, is because many districts have made in Ontario have made SeeSaw a red tool or a banned tool due to privacy concerns. We found out that SeeSaw will migrate data onto Canadian servers, which makes the deal a difference for us to secure privacy and for this to make sure that privacy of our students is protected. So that was a really big deal. So doing the system-wide SeeSaw purchase that we did was a way for us to ensure that the privacy of our students was secured. But number two of that is that that we didn't ban it, we were able to still use it as a system. So other school districts, neighboring ones, and I won't name them because I don't like it's, they've made different choices, have banned SeeSaw from use in the classroom. You may have heard that. That's very accurate. We chose to go a different route, which is try to bring SeeSaw in and do that. So that gets back to Ashley's question, which is, so can you see stuff? The answer to that is yes. In fact, people could always see the stuff that you're putting on SeeSaw, depending on who you added, but also SeeSaw could see the stuff you're putting on SeeSaw and all that stuff. So what's happening now, though, is we're able to do more protection. Maybe you have a comment that gets posted by a parent or a post that kind of goes sideways on SeeSaw. We, as a system, can go in and we can actually support the teacher and ECE and remove that content. Support ourselves as professionals. Do we actively go on and look at stuff every single day on every single thing you're posting? No. One reason why we bought SeeSaw is because we had like 1 million artifacts on SeeSaw. And like, there's just no possible way. We are doing this to give people the tools to communicate well with parents, to engage in pedagogical documentation, to do some really great engagement with students and families. That's why we're doing SeeSaw. Our intent here was not to restrict things or change it. It was to empower the use of SeeSaw as this learning platform, as this tool. So the answer is yes, we can. We do it. We have not actually pulled down anything yet at this point. And if we did,
Why is that not coming from
would be to protect professionals. So I'm going to stop sharing, Steve, and I just wanted to answer that question first because it's a question that many folks have had. So Steve, you can share away. And thanks for joining us today.
Oh, thanks so much for having me. This is great. When we got to chat on Friday, I got really excited about being able to help out all your ECE folks. Let me click on my share this screen. So today, as Ben mentioned, we're going to be talking about skills. And so this is a SeeSaw class. And what I'm going to do is showcase for you a few of the features and ways that you can use skills to document pedagogical progress and to tag the different Ontario. Yep.
It's blue, so that means they're plugged in, right?
Thank you. Great. So you can all see my class right now. This is Mrs. Lawyer's first grade class. I apologize. I know that you all teach JK and SK, but this has a bunch more demonstration content in it. And so you should just assume that this would be a kindergarten class for you, but I was able to upload the example skills here for you. So as most of you know, using SeeSaw, the work appears in the journal on the left. You can look at specific students' work on the right, the class journal, etc. over here. Now, I am going to tick over to this skills tab. The first thing I'd like to show you is just how the different skills can look in this grid view. So you can see some of the sort of why you might want to do this with your pedagogical content. So you'll notice over here at the top, we have the skill name. And when I named them, I gave them the quick code number from your Ontario standards. And I understand from Ben that these are somewhat grouped together, that there is, K.09.1.2.3. For the purpose of tagging in SeeSaw, I think there's about 33 of them. And so this level of granularity is the best level of granularity to use so that you don't have too many to choose from. And so
can we just pause? I probably didn't make sure that everyone's connected to that. So on the skills tab right now, people don't have these expectations loaded, but it will be at some point this week instead, right?
Yep, correct.
And then Carrie, does that make sense to you, what those are?
I was just thinking of our 4 frames, right?
Yes.
And I'm wondering if it's simplified a little bit more into the 4 frames.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe each frame, like simple is better for us, right?
Yeah.
Quickly to go in. So to go through all of that to find out where to place that skill, I wonder if it can be a little bit more
So,
into like to the 4 frames, and you can just like, if you know it's belonging and contributing, you can just throw that right into the belonging and contributing. It's
so can you click on the skills thing there, or a subject or whatever, skills?
Yeah. So what we did, so for subjects, I put, these are all expectations in kindergarten. So now we're looking at these. The categories as we listed them, there were, one of the issues with that is that there were multiple categories associated with the same skill
Okay.
level. And so usually if you, there's 4 different, categories, right? Demonstrating,
Literacy and
literacy and math behaviors. Yep. So there's 4 different of them. If you were to track progress on that, that is like a little bit, that is not quite granular enough, but you can look at the skills that are associated with this and just look at the ones that have this. So now I can add another one. We could add another skill that also has DLMB. And then you would be able to see the different groupings here. So you could click on them and look across them. But one of the things that I really wanted to showcase is that you can see across all of these different, there we go. Excuse me. So when you look, so if you were to have the tapestry of all 32, medium groupings of standards, then you'd be able to see this heat map. So this is the really important actionable tasks that you want to
I
be able
blocked off the one though earlier, like I annexed the one, like that was muted earlier, and
So you're able to look at a skill, and then you can see the number over here represents the number of items that have been tagged with that skill, and the color represents the level of mastery. So this is on a 4-point scale. So there's red, yellow, light green, and dark green. You can change those. I'll show you that in a moment. But importantly, let's say you have a skill that has, you want to see, okay, this Anne has gotten a 4 on K.25. I can actually click on that box and see the work over here. And if there are multiple items, then you can see the progression over here. So you can see what has been tagged there. And this is especially useful when you have multiple items and you've seen students go from level 1 to level 2 to level 3 to level 4 throughout the year as they're demonstrating different behaviors. So this is where you can really see those that granularity.
So Carrie, I think a common practice has been, and maybe Ashley and Sanjay, so it's like people create folders
Yes.
Right.
for each of the frames.
Yeah.
That doesn't necessarily change with this. You would probably keep those folders
Right.
going because that's a way to organize
right.
really kind of
What's
organically.
grand, yeah.
This allows, these are overall expectations to be really clear. Overall expectations from the kindergarten document are then all loaded in, not the specific.
Right. And I like it for the fact that you can see where you're missing with that child, right? So sometimes we have children that are so strong in so many areas that you kind of tend to focus on that a little bit more than what you would if you're like, what is that little girl's name? Anyway, she's got 4 purples, which means we haven't even, she hasn't even showed us any of that yet. So it's nice to be able to go back to your
planning.
Yeah,
Your
exactly.
activities and whatnot.
Exactly
Making
what I
them
was
visual
thinking.
representation.
Visual
of that,
is
right?
huge, and we're visual. A lot of us are visual learners. So I am. So to me, that makes me think I need to work on those areas with little Amanda. So that's.
So a chat comment, which it'll feed into this conversation. So please agree or disagree with this, but from WJ Baird, I'm wondering if you could put 4 frames in folders and then use skills to specify the actual numbered expectations to designate what frame it might fit in. So
Yeah, exactly. That's what we do.
And let me, just for the sake of people who may not be familiar with how you create and use folders. So over here, and now I'm back in this journal tab. There's a folder icon. You can click on that and you can create folders. I've already created the 4 different folders for you, your PSI, SRWB, BC, and DLMB. So if you want to be able to tag an item into a folder, let's say I wanted to take this item and put it into demonstrating literacy and math behaviors. I just click over here. the check mark, and now this has been associated with that folder, and then we'll show up there when you look at the class journal folder.
It's like 2 levels of tagging. And Ashley, you said this is how you use this?
Yeah, like we have access to the skills on ours. So we've inputted ourselves a lot of the skills. So yeah, we put everything in a folder first, and then we even find like during my teaching partner's prep time, sometimes she'll go back and tag the skills, or if we have a free moment, like if we're finding it's too time consuming, we'll do it in the end, because it is so beneficial come report card time. Holy moly. It's awesome.
Yeah, that report card time when you can just go through and see who has mastered what, it makes a big difference. So when you're typing, I have a question for you. When you're typing in the skills yourself, so what she's talking about is now that you have SeeSaw for Schools, we can upload a full list of the skills for you to use. And in this, you type in a name, a code, subject, category, and description. I'm wondering, are there specific ways that you name this to make it more useful for you, more searchable, etc.?
That we did.
Yep.
Yeah, my partner put most of them in, and it looks pretty much exactly like what you did. We have the like the code and then the description.
Okay, great. So let me go ahead and show how to actually tag the skill, because it makes a difference in how you search for it. So I want everybody to have all those skills to know how to do that. So now Anne has posted this piece of wonderful work. I'll play it for you so you can hear what she did.
My best friends are everybody in room 29 kids, so nice and care.
So this child is very clearly demonstrating some literacy and math behaviors over here. So I'm gonna go ahead and look at tag a skill. So this is a little graduation cap. I'll show you that one more time just so you can see. This graduation cap is the skills icon. And it pulls up all of the skills that have been created for either your class, if you've created your own, or for the school when we upload those for you. So you can search by any of the terms that are in here. So you can search for K.9, and then I can see this, and I'm gonna tag this skill, great, and then I just give it a level of mastery. So demonstrate literacy behaviors that enable beginning readers to make sense of a variety of texts. This looks great. I'm gonna give you a 3 because I'm a tough grader. You can also search by literacy or texts.
Remember those codes.
No.
And you don't have to remember the codes, but they are useful. So if you're like, oh, this one's a variety, it's pulling up the standards that have to do with that. We can also put in, I believe that I put in demonstrate literacy math behaviors. So because I put in the category that this is demonstrating literacy and math behaviors, it also comes up for that. I believe that the other one that we had in here was PSI. No, that was this one. What's 25? I can click on this skill. So now we have this, and I'm going to give them their grade over here. And now this item has been tagged with 2 skills, 2 different skills. It can be tagged with up to 10 different skills. And when we come back over here, we'll see that now Anne has filled this in for K09. She has a piece of work here, and I can look at it and see what she's done. And so now this is here, and I'm able to see it, and it updates in real time like that for you. So that's the way that you search and tag the skills in your on a piece of work in SeeSaw.
That's like, to me, like that whole idea of like documenting and then making the pedagogical documentation make sense here. Like it's just like it's taking that piece of work and taking it up a notch.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Hopefully very simply.
Yeah.
So we got some questions. So in the chat box, so why don't we try to catch up with that, Steve, if you're good with that, and maybe Ashley and Sanchia and Mary Lynn and Carrie can try to chime in as well. So can you add more users to a profile, like teachers, ECEs, EAs, that kind of stuff? Steve, can we get more professionals attached?
Can you? Yes, you can add with SeeSaw for Schools. You can add up to 20 co-teachers per class, and so I hope that you don't have more than that.
Nice for our prep teachers to understand that too, right? That they can hop in there and assist with documenting the skills too. So
yep, and so you can add your specials teachers, prep teachers, as you mentioned, and teachers can be on up to 100 classes. So that should suffice for all of your schools. If you have a teacher who teaches in all the classes or is a specials teacher for them, then they can see all of them.
So previously it was 2 when it was 2 teachers, I believe, when it was the free version, right, Steve?
Yep, that is correct. So, but now
20. Cool.
Yep.
It's a lot, big number.
Yeah, we made it big enough that in any reasonable scenario, it is enough. And if you're trying to do something very weird, it is not enough.
The weird factor. Nahi Ridge asking, is there a way that we can create a profile for each student in FDK and then assign a grade 1 teacher next year? And it will become a running record so that teachers can continue to build upon those skills. Wouldn't it be cool to see the progression of skills from FDK to grade 8? So I could probably take this one, Steve. So it depends on our setup. So right now, our number 1 goal was getting this for our system and not having to wipe out all the work that had previously been done because we did it mid-year to kind of set up things certain ways. So we're working on if we're able to do that or not. The idea is that you certainly can progress from year to year with students. That's a functionality, but we chose to do this importing way. So people have been imported in versus a way of like wiping everybody clean and starting fresh in December, which wouldn't have been, I think, too welcome to lose all that great documentation that's already occurred.
Yeah.
So the answer is it can. We're not quite there yet, and we're gonna figure out how we can do that.
Yeah. The what Ben is referring to is that on the free version you don't associate a student ID with the students, but when they do create classes for you, then it will associate a student ID for you. And then that's how we know that this little Johnny is the same as that little Johnny the next year. If they're just names, then we can't associate them.
Yeah.
I'll go in quickly and show you how that functionality works right now. And like Ben said, this likely will not transfer to next year unless you go ahead and add the student IDs for every student, which some districts do, some districts do not, probably about half and half. But you can see school-wide portfolios. So I'm in this first grade class, and I can see, I'll be able to see all of the students that are in my class this year. So let's say I'm, a first grade teacher, and I want to see the work that was going on last year. Then I'll look for Karina. Oh, no, let me look for this. Where is she? She has disappeared. I'll look for Anne. So let me look at Anne over here. So I'll be able to see all of the different classes that Anne has ever been in. So I would be able to see, let's say I'm her first grade teacher, I would be able to see her kindergarten class over here. And then I would be able to see the folders of that work. And so this is where the strategies that you all have to put the demonstrating literacy and math behaviors into different folders is really, really helpful, because now I'm able to actually see the work that's associated with it, and I can see the standards that it's associated with over here in the demonstrating literacy and math behaviors folder from previous years.
Now, just a quick question. Would the next year's teacher be able to see any private notes that you've made on that account in the previous year?
I do not believe that the private notes are available to other teachers. I think they're only available to the first teacher. I'll double check that though. If it's different than that, I will get back to Ben and we can send out a correction not
Yeah.
100% sure, but I believe that it's just for the for that teacher.
Which links back to something Sir John Moore is sharing, which is that not everyone can see the private messages when you have the multiple teachers and professionals,
Right.
ECEs associated with that
Right.
account. So those are teacher to parent conversations, not a group
Right.
conversation.
Which we had talked earlier about it being a little bit tricky too, because if Alyssa, who is my teaching partner, is the main person on that and she's off for the day, and a parent private messages her, she needs to be kind of attached to her phone for the day in order to let me know what that private message is. So we were talking about maybe when we're do our Kinderstart program is to put a little note in saying, listen, if you have something that's important for that day, pick up, change of whatever, that it needs to be a phone call to the office
100%.
and not a private message, so that everybody knows. So it would, we find that tricky sometimes, that I feel like my teaching partner always has to be attached to her phone when she's not there for the day.
I think it's important too to say there's communications that happen in SeeSaw, there's communications that happen in the office. You know, somebody's getting picked up and that's a really time sensitive thing that doesn't have to be attached to the SeeSaw carry, and that's a really good point.
Yeah.
There's different types of communication, and to clarify that.
Yeah, and I feel like sometimes we get a little bit relaxed with that SeeSaw component, right? It becomes more of almost like a text message sometimes back and forth to our parents, where we're losing the true the truth of what the SeeSaw is for. It's for progress and education. It's not those small conversations.
And for pedagogical documentation. And some of the reasons why we're saying we're not sure where we're going to go is right now we wanted to get SeeSaw because we knew it was so widely used. As you know, Steve shared these great tools to make the documentation even more pedagogical, all right, to enhance that piece that it's already happening with the great work of our ECE colleagues that are jumping in today. But we don't know where we're going to be in 3 or 4 or 5 years. The world moves pretty quickly. So that's why we committed to this year and next year to do this, and then we'll kind of evaluate and see where we're at and what different tools and those type of things are available. What we do know is that this type of documentation, to really make it a pedagogical documentation, is of significant value in the kindergarten program.
I have one more question. It just kind of got me there. So can a parent go on and see the skills?
At this time, the skills are only for the teacher. So the students and the families do not have access to them.
Just
that's largely that was intentional because SeeSaw is not, you know, necessarily a grade book. We had all this great documentation going on here, and so we didn't want to replace that and have the students come here to get graded and have their parents see that. Keep it a little bit more of that reflective and expressive space for them to feel very safe in doing that, but give the teachers tools to make your documentation easier so that you can do that.
Perfect.
So the question I know it's been, we've kind of mentioned it, but let's say it again because it's really important to link, which is the question is, who puts in all the skills in the SeeSaw, or is it preloaded?
So we will upload a full set of the skills to each of your schools. So you'll have this list where it will, you know, go from K.01 all the way through K.33, and you'll have access to that. So you don't have to do that. That's one of the big benefits of SeeSaw for schools, is that your administrators and your administrators' helpers can go ahead and do that
Thank you, Steve.
for you.
Appreciate it. He's going above and beyond for us. That's really appreciated.
You're welcome. It's my pleasure. This will just be fantastic. I'm really excited to see how this can take off across all the different schools. Let me show one more thing over here. So right now I'm going up into these this wrench over here. These are your class settings. And so there's a lot of different settings for students, families, folders, and then there's skills. So you can change the skill rating scale. Is 4 stars the best rating scale for you?
I think so. We're always careful not to make it levels. I like how you said like level of mastery.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know, that's That's always the kindergarten and early years conundrum right now, what you're getting to. What do you guys think?
I think the stars works.
You think 4 is the right, or is
Yeah.
it should be 3 or 5 or 6?
I think either, I like odd numbers in the sense of I can see that they might just be stuck right in the middle. Like if I'm giving them a 3 or a 2,
Mhm.
does that really, I feel like a 3 means that they're still kind of like
Mhm.
in the middle, but that's
Yeah.
my thought.
Yeah.
You use it more than I do. So
Yeah, we kind of find it like the 4, it's like the 1 is like doesn't have an understanding, starting to understands, and then almost like is like full mastery, like ready for next
Yeah.
level
Mhm.
is how we use the 4.
but you could change that according, it's not set in stone for every single person, right?
So your schools, so this is an administrator choice. Your administrators can set it for everybody and say everybody gets 4 stars or
Right.
everybody gets 5 stars. You can also set it so that teachers can decide for themselves. So if some teachers want to use 3 stars or 4 stars, you can also leave this option open. If, since you're not, very clearly delineating like these different levels of mastery and here's a rubric to use on this, then it sort of works well to let teachers decide, because maybe, as you said, one of you really wants 5 stars and you can come into your class and make it a 5-star scale.
Because this would have been system-wide. I'm trying to think, Steve, when we're setting this up way back when, what it was. Because it goes beyond kindergarten, it may have been 4 stars because of the 4 levels. That may have been where that got set, Steve.
We
but it's a
use
really
4
good
stars as
point.
we use 4 stars as a default, actually. So that's likely where it got set. Because most places have those 4 different levels of mastery, like you said. Like no understanding, approaching understanding, understands, and full mastery. Some states, some provinces, some states in the U.S. use 5 stars, etc. That's why we gave it this.
Yeah.
And Australia had a bunch that had 6 different.
What was this color scheme?
Oh, you're interested in colors, are you?
Well, like there is a lot of
It's
stuff about
FTK.
color, right? Like in red, there's, it's
Color
red
blindness.
is an
Yep.
issue sometimes,
Yeah. So we did what we did. Each of these color schemes. So you can have the red, yellow, light green, dark green. You can make it a little more intense if you have some color blindness issues, and then you can also do a scale. Of these are really useful for if you have a teacher that has color blindness issues. Each one of these, I believe, has different opacities so you can see it, but this one is really, really clear. These are really clear to know which ones are which. So you can select different color scales for yourselves.
And is that able to be customized at the teacher level?
Yeah, you can set that to be customizable at the teacher level, so you're able to use that. And then in manage skills, so this is where you can see the full list of the skills. So you can see descriptions, categories. I listed the subject as expectations in kindergarten for all of these. And I did that so that when you click on the subject, it pulls up all these ones. We don't necessarily have to do that because you'll likely only have these in your skills palette. So this is where you can come to see the full list of skills. If you have something that you did want to put that's outside of these, let's say you have something that's really important to your classroom, that's not tied to the Ontario early childhood standards. If you wanted to have something that's very specific to you, you can add your own skill and say, like maybe where,
Like we just did an item on early numeracy development, pre-counting, pre-addition with counting, and we have like 4 strategies. You could add those 4 strategies into here.
Exactly. Yep.
The way that you track their progress on there, or phonological awareness. There's a way that we could do some of that work as well. Yeah, letter recognition, some like more granular pieces if you choose, right, as EC professional.
Exactly. And if there is something that you, I believe that even if they upload it, you can change these. Let me see. This one I did not upload. Addition of single digit numbers. Edit. So this is something that if there's something about the way that the skill is named, or you don't like how it looks, or you want something else in there that will help you to remember, you can come in to manage your skills and change it just for your class.
Yeah.
So those are the important settings to know about, so you can really take full control over this. Some really good use cases for skills. You know, like I said, they're not visible to parents all the time, but when parents do come in and you want to review how their child is doing, you can go to students over here, click on a specific student, and go through with the family member. If they're like, oh, I saw on their report card they only got a 2 on this, what's going on there? You can actually click on it and show them the work that backs up your assessment and say, this is what we saw, this is what we'd really like you to work on them with. And so you're able to really clearly articulate that for a student, keeping their privacy safe, and showcasing only that work to the student. Similarly, if you want to look at just a specific, so that these are your skills, if you want to look at just a specific category, you know, you can look at all these ones that have BC. This will be if you have like demonstrating learning and math, literacy and math behaviors. There would be 2 different categories for its standalone and with PSI, just the way that it's uploaded. So you would have to click on both of those to see them. Let's see, actually.
Yeah.
And then the last thing, if you want to look at a specific skill, so if you did want to look at just your this skill, then you could see how your students are doing on it and go down and give them their grade. You know, you can see how they're doing on that specific one if you want to work on something in particular. So these categories are helpful to really limit what you're looking at and showcase them.
How would you use that, do you think, with, you know, in your own practice, right? Would you, with parents, but even for yourself?
Definitely, like for the interviews, that would be great to be able to pull the students' work and show them independently.
Like this, yeah.
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 And really see where their strengths are, you know, where we can work.
Yeah.
Like we said earlier, programming too, right?
Yeah.
Like if you really, because sometimes you forget, like you don't forget, but you get stuck. If it's all inquiry based, sometimes you're so engaged in those things that you're like, oh my goodness, we kind of missed the ball on this area. Well, let's you know, spend some time and focus on that for like the next couple of weeks. Quite often we do that too. Like we'll sit down together, but this is a lot more clear, right? With your partners, you chat, but this is really clear to say, listen, we've really missed
this skill.
Yeah.
Question, Bright Grove saying, I'm unable to utilize skills free trial option only. So that might mean that you haven't migrated your account into the board one. So if you are that way, please send me an email, ben.hazard@lkdsb.net, and I can help you with that, or get someone to help you with that. So that is we're showing off features and features, this one's skills, that we are super excited about because it really bumps us up a notch and gives more opportunities for, you know, our ACT professionals to just do the great work they're doing, that you're doing. So that's why it's important to kind of make sure that you brought that in. There's obviously the privacy pieces of it, but beyond that, there's some really great tools here as a way to kind of get the learning demonstrated different ways.
Yeah, and Ben, there's like a form and a process, right, to be able to get your account, their teacher accounts connected to the school dashboard. That's correct.
So I know for a lot of my ECs that we were chatting with too, it's very user friendly, which is nice because I'm not very techy. So for me, this is like really nice. But the part that we find as ECEs sometimes is, when do we do this? Like when and allowing ourselves maybe the time in the classroom to say, I need 5 just to like throw these in here, because I feel like sometimes we don't have the time to do it, right? first thing in the morning, we're setting up the room. The end of the day, we're cleaning up, getting organized for the next day. When is the best time to be doing our documentation with this, right? I know that we've struggled as ECEs, a lot of us, and Alyssa, my coworker, has said to me before, just let me know, I need 10 minutes, and I'll kind of, or if we're doing like a group activity and it's kind of quiet, to take those times to do that documentation, because it's very important. And I find like sometimes I slack in it because I don't really have the time.
Yeah.
So this to me is very user friendly, and I feel like it's quick to like be able to like throw them into the skills, so that it's all, I mean, we have pictures on our phones sometimes that just, or on our iPads that we just don't get into files. So
That's what I love about SeeSaw, is it's so easy too that I like to leave the documentation a lot of times too up to the children to do themselves, right? If you give them an iPad, they'll go and take pictures of their work and talk about their work, and you get like the 10 silly videos of, someone's nostrils or whatnot, but in there's those gems, and you can really see them talk about their own learning, and and that frees up our time a little bit too, right? Like that they can document their learning themselves and name their learning.
There is also now in SeeSaw for schools the ability. So oftentimes in the workflow, teachers have to approve the work as it's coming through. And so that's usually a good time, if you are able to do that, to take the time to look at the work and you're reviewing it, then as you're going through that queue, you can tag the skills at that time, like as you're doing it. So that's a good time, because you're already having to go through one by one and seeing what's coming through. So that's number one. That's usually a good time to be able to do that. And if your teacher usually does that, and you were able to take that on, I'm sure that would be a great, they would love that as well. Additionally, in SeeSaw for schools, we did just release some new functionality where you can send a piece of work back to a student for editing. Maybe they didn't follow the instructions correctly, or they're 3 and they took a silly video of their nostrils instead of the thing that they wanted to and didn't realize it. So you can send it back with a comment and say, like, please do this. And you can send it back with a voice comment, etc. So those students can save as drafts, and you can send something back for editing for them to do if you didn't like what they did, but there was a good start there.
We were just affirming it. It's a challenge to find the time, and every teacher, this sounds very trite, and I don't mean it to be, but every teacher ECU relationship is different, just depending on strengths and personalities and how that works out. So I think it's about that joint understanding of how that works. And my learning, which I've learned so much from EC colleagues over the years, which is like learning stories. Like, these things are labor intensive and time intensive items, and not everything needs to be documented, but are we documenting some things?
The right
like
things.
the right things, right? And it's not that it has to be perfect, but if we get enough of the right things over time, we really tell a rich story of that student's learning from a developmental perspective that I think really speaks to parents. I think that's why SeeSaw has been so successful in our district. It really speaks to parents much more to who they see their child as and how they're really progressing.
And also, just as a plug for our next session, there are some good intersections between activities and skills that I'll be able to show you that can also save you some time in assessing student work if they're able to respond to an activity and be able to do that. So getting that's just a little hint for our next session. We'll be doing a deep dive in activities.
Well, we were looking at 45 minutes, Steve, and it's 10:13. Are there any last thoughts about skills and SeeSaw before we flip to the final slides?
No.
Seeing none.
I think our teaching partners would benefit from this too, right? Our teachers, if they can have an opportunity to kind of go through it with Steve too, because you've shown me some things that I didn't know, or how to go about doing some things. So I feel like there's probably some teachers there too that would love to be able to see what this.
Well, great news. We've recorded the session today.
We can help you with that.
So you may be listening to us in the future, and if so, what's happening?
Yeah.
Let us know. We're from the past. Steve, this has been great. Can I just get you to release the sharing?
I believe so.
And so folks saying we'll be logged someplace, absolutely, at our blog, LKELEM Pro.
Yep.
Blogspot.com is where we will have our item, this shared. So we're eager for that to occur. So we've had questions throughout. We are looking for feedback from everyone. So you know, we use this to plan what may happen next. We don't know. There's lots of uncertainty. We're getting really interesting feedback from folks, and we really thank you. You're letting us know how we can improve and all those things. So it's tinyurl.com/SeeSaw2020. That's specific for this session. And we don't put a lot of things in. We do have a rating scale. We do have a 5-star scale. Now that Steve has a 5-star scale.
Yeah.
So that is what we are doing. So please take a minute to do that. But thank you to our, I appreciate the work of our EC professionals who have continued to learn together. Thank you for all that you do for our students. Thank you to Steve for jumping in from jolly old England. And Carrie, Santia, and Ashley for being willing to share among peers. That's significant. And I think it really helps us make sure that we're doing the right type of learning and making sure that we're connecting it to what happens in Lambton, Kent, and what happens in our classrooms. So I just want to say a huge thank you for your efforts that way. So, any last thoughts there, Steve?
No, just thank you so much. This has been fantastic to get to meet you all and help you to learn more how to pick it up and run with skills. I can't wait for the next session.
All right. So I'm going to put the people wondering what LKELEMPRO.blogspot.com is where this will all be. So thank you very much. And Rod, let's stop the recording. We will be back.